Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Roofs webinar. My name is Nick, and I'll be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, everybody will be on mute. So if you do happen to have any questions at any point during our class, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the questions and answer section. And at the end of the class, I will go through and answer any questions that may have come up. Also, at the end of the class, I will be sending out an email that's going to contain a document that covers everything that we're going to be looking at in today's class. Should you happen to have any questions after our class is over, you can reach out to our support department. You can reach them by either email or by calling in, and they'll be happy to help you out with any questions. Again, today's class is on roof design. And what we're going to be doing in today's class is we're just essentially going to be going over how to create roofs in Envisioneer. Now, the Envisioneer catalog contains a wide variety of different roof types, including your hip roofs, your mansard roofs, your curved roofs, and your double slope roofs. The roof is then inserted at a uniform plate height to match the location settings that you've defined. Once you have inserted a roof, you can then edit each of its support segments to create virtually any configuration. For example, you can control the slope or the plate height of individual segments, or if you've inserted a hip roof, you can convert it to a gable end. The topics that we're going to be covering in today's class are how to insert a roof. We're also going to be looking at converting a hip to a gable. We're going to be looking at adjusting some plate heights in our design, and we're also going to add in some dormers. So first, let's look at inserting a roof. There are two main roof tools in Envisioneer. There's the Roof by Perimeter tool and the Roof by Picking Points tool. When you use the Roof by Perimeter tool, a roof is going to be automatically placed over the perimeter walls on the selected building location. The walls and the roof become a cohesive unit that move and interact together. When you use the Roof by Picking Points tool, you can freely pick points to define the outline of the roof anywhere you want in your design. Each method is suited to a different purpose and has its own advantages. The method you choose will depend on where your roof structure will lie in relation to the model's walls. And as you can see, I have a set of walls already drawn in on our design here. So I'm going to go up and we're going to insert the roof in both ways. I want to show you how we can do this in both options here. So let's take a look at the Roof by Perimeter tool. So when you use the Roof by Perimeter tool, the program detects your model's perimeter walls and it will automatically place a roof over top of them. To be able to use the tool, you need to have exterior walls in place in your design. And they must be in a formed closed layout. So every wall must be attached at a corner. We're going to go up, we're going to select our roof option, and underneath the drop down, we are going to make sure that we are adding in a roof by perimeter. You also want to make sure that you are on the correct location. So depending on the location where you want this roof to sit, you want to make sure your building locations are showing that. And we're going to insert ours on the ground floor. As soon as I select my roof, as soon as I select the roof tool, I can select the roof from the catalog on the right-hand side. Now you can select any slope of roof that you want from within here. I'm just going to grab the 612 slope. I'm going to bring my mouse right into the middle of my model. Since I selected the Roof by Perimeter, it's going to find the perimeter walls and it's going to automatically place a roof over all of those walls to create the roof of that design. So all I have to simply do here is simply left click once and it adds in the roof for me. Very quick and very easy way of adding in your roof. Now, let's say we want to add in a roof, but we want it to have a different look. It's not going to follow the walls exactly. That's where you can use the Roof by Picking Points tool. So again, we're going to go up, we're going to select our roof tool, but this time we're going to select Roof by Picking Points. I'm going to again use the 612 slope. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply left click in the middle of my wall. Now this is where I want to change the shape of the roof. I don't want it to follow the shape. I want this to be a covered porch So I'm going to create a line using my snap tracking tool to know exactly where I want this roof to sit. And then same over here, I'm going to use my snap tracking tool to again add in my roof over those points. This will create the roof, but now it's going to be going over top of certain areas instead of going over top of my walls. So depending on the type of roof that you're trying to create, you can use either one of those two options to create your roofs. The trick here is to find the way that's going to be the quickest for you, that is also going to allow you to represent the roof exactly the way that you want. Now, you can adjust the roof as well, so you don't actually have to do a roof by picking points. So if I do a roof by perimeter, once again, and I can create that exact same roof by just adjusting some edges. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to be looking at, is modifying a roof. So you can select a roof by clicking on one of its edges. And when you select the roof, the entire roof will be selected. And a number of different grips and markers will appear on the roof itself. General editing tools like move and rotate will affect the roof as a whole. By clicking and dragging the solid blue grips at the center of each edge, you can move an edge to effectively stretch the roof. By clicking and dragging the hollow blue grips at the corners, you can stretch the corners of the roof to reshape it. The red and green arrows are surface markers. The green arrow indicates that the currently selected surface is what you're working on. Changes to most properties, such as the roof type, slope, and overhang distance, affect only the currently selected surface, which is again marked by the green arrow. You can make additional surfaces current by simply clicking on the red arrows to change them to be green. So let's take a look at the roof. So if you remember, I did roof by picking points, and I wanted to create a covered porch here and a covered porch here. So you can still add in a roof by perimeter, select the edge of the roof, and you have the grips. So again, here you can see our hollow blue grip will just change the shape of the roof itself. Whereas the solid blue grip, I can actually stretch it down and snap it in, so it will create a new shape. So again, I can grab a solid blue grip and stretch it down to create a new roof shape. So again, I just want to reiterate that you can use either one of the roof tools options, be it perimeter or by picking points. It's really going to be dependent on the shape of the roof that you're working with. And is it easier to edit the roof after it's been inserted, or is it easier to just pick the points yourself and then add the roof in that way? So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to go edit, undo, and edit, undo. I don't want to make those changes. And what I do want to do, though, is I want to show how we can adjust the arrows. So if I select an edge of the roof, you're going to see that the arrow turns green. So let's change multiple surfaces simultaneously here. So we're going to select this edge to be green, and let's change a couple of our different roof edges to be green as well. So let's place a marker here, here, and here. So let's say we want gable ends on these 4 edges of our roof. So by just simply selecting each of those arrows, we've now made those the currently selected at roof edges, and they are now highlighted in green. What we're going to do now is we're going to convert those edges to be gables. So with a basic roof in place, again, you can modify each individual roof segment. We've adjusted those to be green. We're now going to right click and we're going to go into properties. Under the properties of the roof, we can see that it shows us that it is a 612 slope hip roof. We can also see that the roof shape is set to hip. Now, by default in Envisioneer, all roofs will insert as a hip or as a mansard, depending on what you've selected. But you cannot add in a gable end automatically. It needs to be set as one of these, and you need to edit it after it's been inserted because we don't know exactly where you want your gable ends to be. So here we're going to say, I've already determined where my gable ends are by selecting those arrows. Now I'm just going to change the roof shape from a hip to a gable. And this now just changes those arrows to be gable ends. I can further refine the shape of the roof. I can adjust the overhang. I can also go into the support and details tab, and I can change the way that the gable ends are going to be displayed. So here we can see that the gable end is set to plane. I can go in and say, well, I want this to be a half hip, which is going to be, we're just going to go in 1 foot 6 inches. So that's going to extend that roof edge 1 foot 6 inches along my wall. And all we're going to do is simply say, okay. And what that does is it's now changed all of those hips into gables. And when I go into a 3D view, we will see the gable ends in our roof as well. Now, what I also want to do is, as you can see here, I have my roof, or my wall heights are set to 8 foot 1 1/8. So I'm just going to go in and select all of these walls, properties, and yeah, these should be 8 foot 1 1/8. And what we're also going to do is we're going to make sure that the gable ends on these walls are also set to auto extend. So on these walls, we're going to go into the property. So instead of saying, I want it to be level, we're going to say auto extend 6 inches. And that will just close in the gable ends for our walls. Now we did a 1 foot 6 for our gable end, and that looks a little bit small. So we're going to go back into the properties of these edges. And we're going to go back into the properties, and we're going to say under support and details, let's do 2 foot 6. And then we'll say, okay. And again, that's just going to help increase the size of the gable end return. So it looks a little bit more realistic for this type of construction. With the brick wall, we probably need that to be a little bit larger. I'm going to go back into 2D. And the next thing I want to talk about is adjusting plate heights. So you can raise or lower a roof surface by editing its support variables. Since each side of the roof can be edited separately, you can easily achieve multiple plate heights throughout a roof. So in our design, we can see that we have an area here that we can easily raise up a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to adjust the roof so that it is a little bit higher in these areas. So I'm going to select this edge and this edge of the roof. I'm going to go into the right-click menu, and I'm going to select Properties. Under Properties, under Support and Details, I'm going to change the roof support height to be 9 foot 1 1/8. I'm going to say OK. I'm also going to select these walls properties, and we're also going to make sure that the walls are also 9 foot 1 1/8 in that area. So now what we're going to see is the walls are now going to be adjusted. I think we broke the roof there. So let's go edit, undo. All right, so let's do that again. I think we went up a little bit too high. So let's go into the properties, and we're going to go into support and details. And let's just do 9 feet here. There we go. And then again, we're going to change these to be 9 foot height. top and bottom. We're just going to say 9 feet. There we go. And so now when we go into our 3D view, we can now see, and if I pull this camera around, we are now seeing the walls and the roof are a bit higher on that edge. Now, the issue was I raised it up over top here, so it was removing this surface of the roof. So I just want to make sure that I'm not going past the main roof, and that should alleviate the problem that we were seeing there. Now, other things that we can take advantage of when editing a roof are also going to be in the gable ends. So let's say, for example, on this gable end roof, we don't want it to be the same material. So in this gable end, we want this to be, instead of brick all the way up, we want to show this as a different style of wall in that gable end. So we're going to take the wall properties, we're going to make it set back to level, and we're going to leave it at the, we're going to make that 9 feet to match the rest of the walls. So what we're going to see there is the wall now stopping at the 9-foot mark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select just that gable end. I'm going to go into the properties of that roof. And where it says display gable, it says none. I'm going to change that to be wall. And then under the wall, I'm going to select, under none selected, I'm going to select whatever type of wall that I want. And I'm going to use the cement board panel wall. And I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to say OK. And what that does is it now adds in that gable end wall into that area. Now I can go into the properties of this wall, and again, it's going to auto extend. We want that to be 6 inches, and it will now show the roof with a different material for our gable end in that one side of the roof. Everything else will still be brick, just that one side is now going to show that different material. So you can also control walls with your roofs, especially in your gable ends, if you're looking to create a different design. So I'm going to go back into 2D. And the next thing we're going to be looking at is creating dormers on our roofs. Now, a dormer is a small structure that projects from a roof slope. A typical dormer consists of a roof and 3 walls. The most common type of dormer is the gable dormer, characterized by the front gable of the roof. To insert dormers, you can use the dormer roof tool to insert a complete dormer on an existing roof with a single mouse click. You can also control the dormer's width, roof type, wall type, and wall height. So let's insert a dormer on our roof using the dormer tool. So underneath the roof drop-down, we're going to select dormer roof. And in here you can see we get the dormers dialog. Now in this dormer dialog, we're going to be able to edit the roof to show how we want this particular dormer to look. So we can control the width, we can control the roof. We're going to change that to be a 612 to match the rest of our roofs. We can also control if we want that to be a gable front or a hip dormer. If you want it to be a hip dormer, you're going to uncheck gable front. Do we want the dormer walls to be included? And if so, what type of wall do we want to use? Typically, you're not going to include a brick dormer here. This will probably be some kind of different material. So we're going to use the cement board panel wall, and we're going to say OK. How high do we want that roof to be above our main roof? So here we can see it's sitting 3 feet above our main roof. You can adjust that, type in any value that you want. We're going to simply say OK. And now attached to my cursor is that dormer roof. And now I can just simply drop that in. Now in this case, we can see that it is sitting a bit too high. So we can edit, undo, we can adjust it, or we can manually manipulate that roof to match what we want. So I can go back in and I can select the roof edges. and I can go into the properties and I can again adjust the actual support height of this roof. So let's just go down and say 10 feet here. And then we'll say okay. And you can see it now starts to change the height of that roof. And we can see it's now not interfering with the main ridge. But I can go back into the properties and I can fine tune those values so it gets closer to what I want. And that's pretty close to where we need to be. Now, when I look at this roof, the walls themselves are also going to extend past the main roof now, or the dormer roof. So what I want to do here is I want to edit the actual shape of that roof. Now, when a dormer is added in, you're going to get your 3 walls, but it's also going to include a wall line. And that wall line can be selected by using your cycle select. So I'm going to put my cursor right over this edge. I'm going to left click once. That's going to select the main roof. If I hold my shift key down and I use my flywheel and I cycle forward once, it's now going to select the next element in line with that point, and that is going to be the wall line. Now I can stretch that wall line back. And what that does is it now affects where the walls sit in relation to my dormer. We're still going to see the original cut line of where the roof is being cut out. So all I have to do is simply select the roof, right click, and I can say update roof, and it's now going to fix that for me. So now what we're going to see is the new roof lines with our dormer now added in. And I can select the dormer walls and I can adjust the heights of those walls to again match what we want in this area. So these 2 walls, we're going to go into their properties and we are going to say these should be 11 feet. Then this wall, we should probably be having this one auto extending up. And again, properties, we want that to be 6 inches. So that's just going to bring the edge of that roof down 6 inches to meet up with the edge of our roof surface. So that's how you can add in gable end dormers. Now, one question that we do get quite a bit is I want to add in a shed dormer. So to add in a shed dormer, you're going to follow basically the same steps. We're going to go back in, we're going to select our dormer roof. Let's make this guy a little bit wider. Let's go 8 feet. Let's leave this at a 412. But we're going to get rid of the gable front. This is going to insert a hip roof. We're going to leave the, we're going to change the walls to be the 2x6 cement board panel wall. And we're going to leave it at 3 feet. And we're going to say okay. And what that's going to do is, again, it's going to give us the ability to place in a dormer along our wall wherever we want. So here we have our new dormer added in. What I now want to do is I want to adjust the roof to create a shed roof. Now in Envisioneer, to create a shed roof, 3 of the 4 edges need to be a gable. The lowest point will stay your hip. So the lowest point on this shed is going to be the front edge here. So that's going to stay a hip edge. Everything else is going to be a gable. So I'm going to make sure all 3 arrows are selected, right click, properties, and I'm going to change it from a hip to a gable, and I'm just going to say okay. I want to adjust some of these separately from the others. So I want these 2 edges to be selected. So I'm going to go into the properties and I can say, I only want this to be a 1 foot overhang on either side. And then on the back edge, I want to adjust the overhang to be 0 here. So this is just going to bring the edge of that roof all the way back. Along the front edge, this is where I can control not only the overhang again, but I can also control the actual slope of the roof. So if we go in and we take a look at the shape of this roof, and we pull this guy around to the back here, we can see how our roof is starting to take shape. We can see that it is a little bit too high. So let's change the slope of that roof so that it matches where it's going to sit more closely on our design. So I'm going to select the edge of that roof, properties, and let's just make that a 212 slope. And we can see now that it's starting to lower the slope of that roof for us. And we can now either continually lower the slope, or we can start to adjust the actual height of the roof itself. So now I can go into the properties, and under the support and details tab, let's just make that 11 feet. And we take a look now. Now it's starting to lower that roof where we want it to sit. Typically, you would probably want this roof to be a little bit bigger than a 612. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to make this slope a little bit smaller than what you probably would do in this case, but we're going to make it a 112 slope. And now we can see we have our shed roof dormer on our design. And again, we can go through and adjust the walls so that they match up with the actual roof that we're working with. So we can go in again and we can just select these, right click properties, and we can say we want these to be, let's do auto extend, we'll do 6. So those will now auto extend up to our dormer roof. And then this one, we will just make the 11 feet. Like so. So that's how you can create different styles of dormers on your roof. Again, you can do the gable end dormers, or you can do shed dormers just by adjusting the style of roof that you add in as your dormer edges. There is one other dormer roof that we're gonna add in here, and I'm just gonna add in a couple walls off to the side here. So it's gonna grab a wall, and we're gonna throw in our walls like that. We're also gonna add in a new roof by picking points, and I'm just gonna pick the points here along this roof. Now I want this roof. Pardon me, we're going to delete that out. We want this to be an 812 slope here. So we're just going to drop in our roof in like so. So if I want to create a flush gable design, I can do that by creating a couple of breaks in my roof. So I like to use the line command. This just gives me a lot of control over where the points are going to be. So I usually start with the middle of the wall and I draw in my first line. Let's make this an 8-foot flush gable. So I'm going to go over 4 feet in this direction, and then we're basically going back 8 feet. This gives me 2 points to snap to. So I can now select the roof, right click, and I can go break. I'm going to break it once on that point, and I'm going to break it again on that point. So I now have 3 arrows on my roof. I want to make sure that just the middle arrow is selected. I can then go right click properties, and I can change it from a hip to a gable, and I can say okay. And that's now going to create a flush gable out the front of that design here. So we're going to see just that flush gable for that edge. Now I did an 812 slope here because if you do a 612 slope, it starts to get a little bit too small and you may not get the flush gable to work. So if you're finding that you can't get the flush gable to work because you have a lower slope roof, you will need to just manually stretch that roof out just a little bit, and you'll get the gable to show up. So that's how you can create a flush gable design using the break options in your roof tools. So that covers everything that I wanted to discuss in today's class. So again, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to ask any of your questions that you may have. Go ahead and type those in. While you're doing that, I'm just going to go over a quick review of what we've covered in today's class. So there are different ways of inserting a roof in Envisioneer, and the method you choose depends on where the roof will sit in relation to the exterior walls. Roofs can be customized to achieve virtually any style or configuration that is desired. Use the Roof by Perimeter tool to automatically insert a roof over the perimeter walls of a selected building location. The roof is then going to be connected to the walls, so if you change the wall layout, the roofs will also change with it. Use the Roof by Picking Points tool to create a roof of a custom size and shape that is independent of the walls beneath it. This method is ideal for veranda or shed roofs. General editing tools like Move and Rotate apply to the entire roof itself. Use the grips on a roof's corners and edges to resize and reshape the roof. Each roof segment can be edited individually. By editing the properties of different segments, you can create a roof with multiple pitches, plate heights, and styles. Use the dormer roof tool to insert a dormer on an existing roof surface, and you can do that with either a gable edge, with a hip edge, or by creating a shed dormer. And to create a gabled portion in the middle of a fascia, you can break the roof edge at 2 points to create a new roof segment. Then you can simply select that new segment and change it to be a gable end. Perfect. So I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm just going to pause for just another moment just to see if anybody has any other questions that they would like answered. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I will be sending out an email that's going to contain everything that we've talked about in today's class. Should you happen to have any questions while going over that document, again, please don't hesitate. Reach out to our support department. They will be happy to answer any of your questions. Perfect. Well, there doesn't appear to be any questions for today's class, so I do want to thank everybody for attending. I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.